This week, a Brazilian judge dismissed a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against oil giant Chevron, ending a 2-year legal battle over a spill that happened back in 2011. The spill occurred at the Frade offshore oil field off the coast of Rio de Janeiro. At least 3,600 barrels of crude leaked into the ocean. This case is the largest ever environmental lawsuit in Brazilian history. Prosecutors were asking for $18 billion in damages from Chevron. They also filed charges against the company's drilling contractor, Transocean Ltd, as well as 17 employees. However, Judge Rafael Piro dismissed those charges after accepting a deal with Chevron that requires the company to pay $135 million in compensatory activities. Brazil has become a sort of epicenter for offshore drilling in South America. In 2007, there was a major discovery of large oil reserves off the country's coast. Analysts say that it is the biggest discovery in the last 20 years. I was joined earlier by David Cassuto. He's a law professor and the director of the Brazil American Institute for Law and Environment at Pace Law School. And I first asked him if he could give us more details about how the settlement came about.
Well, sure. There was a Chevron and several of its partners had an oil spill off of the coast of Rio de Janeiro. It's in what's called the pre-salt deposits. It was a spill by U.S. standards comparatively small, I think about 3,000 barrels. But it caused, it was a real wake-up call for the Brazilian government in terms of the potential danger from the spill, and a lawsuit was filed by an arm of the Brazilian government called the public prosecutor, or in Portuguese it would be the Ministério Público, seeking 40 billion or so in damages from the spill. And so the idea is, well, this would be, Brazilian law is not that much different from U.S. law in terms of what it was seeking. It was seeking cleanup costs and property damage, and also possible costs going into the future. And so that's what brought about this lawsuit. The lawsuit was filed essentially to recoup both present and possible future damages.
And I want to be clear about that. That's 40 billion reais, about 18 billion American dollars. So why did they agree to settle for 135 million US dollars in the end?
Well, it's an interesting question. The short answer is that it was in everybody's interests. First of all, these oil deposits off the coast of Rio are in very, very deep water. They're below 2,000 meters of water, 2,000 meters of ocean floor, and then some 2,000 meters of salt. Getting to that oil is extremely difficult. And nonetheless, we're talking about oil reserves that are absolutely immense and incredibly important to Brazil. So while they want to be very careful with any potential drilling in the area, they also don't want to completely discourage it. So the settlement, I think, reflects a certain pragmatism on the part of everybody involved. One needs to pay the costs of the exploration and potential damages. On the other hand, the Brazilian government is very wary of deterring future exploration and development in those fields.
However, it was the Brazilian government that did come up with that initial estimate of the $18 billion, which, by the way, is more than the U.S. got after the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, which caused significantly more damage. And in this oil spill, nothing washed up on shore. I think it stayed about 67 miles offshore. No one was injured or killed, nothing exploded, etc.
Yes, you're right. So the Brazilian government came up with that number. Just like any good litigant would in a potential lawsuit, you look at the potential damages and you get the largest number possible, because that's the number you start with when you're starting a negotiation. And I mean, realistically, any lawsuit is also a negotiation. So you want to start with the most advantageous negotiating position. You're quite right. The number pales in comparison. If we look at the damages that were actually realized from this spill versus the Deepwater Horizon spill, that's both a commentary on the Brazilian government's negotiating position, as well as the fact that the Deepwater Horizon damages probably were not calculated in a way that realistically reflected the damage.
And also, Chevron was forced to close down for about a 6-month period, which is hugely costly to that company. Was that taken into account here at all, do you know?
I don't know for certain, but I would certainly assume that it was. Chevron went out of its way to look like, and that's a cynical way of saying it, but also to be what it viewed itself as a good corporate citizen. So as soon as there was another small leak, Chevron shut down immediately because the optics of it were horrible. I don't think there was the second leak was in any danger of causing any significant damages at all as well, but Chevron was looking to contain any possible PR damage as well as any possible oil spill, and so it shut down. And yeah, that's a very expensive proposition.
And Brazil is hugely important in the production of oil. 90% of Brazil's oil production actually happens offshore. So has anything changed since this oil spill?
Well, has anything changed? I think, well, I don't know for certain. Again, I don't know. The technology for exploring in the pre-salt area is all new. So yeah, I guess the short answer is yes. Things are constantly changing. The technology is in development. This is a kind of exploration that's never been done anywhere else. So every week or every month of delay brings about more knowledge about how to do this safely.
Thank you.
And in fact, Petrobras, the Brazilian national oil company, has been very slow in developing this area because they have chosen to be very careful.
Thank you so much for enlightening us and bringing us the latest on this case and helping us understand it. David Cassuto, law professor and director of the Brazil American Institute for Law and Environment at Pace Law School.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.